Okay, I think everybody who's here, who's going to get here, is going to be here. So I want to introduce myself, Eric Hammersmark again with AboutTime Technologies. I've been with the company for about 5 years now, located here in Denver, Colorado, and been in the industry for about 10 years, 15 overall for construction technology. So been in and around construction and the technology side of things for some time now. It's beginning to become a career. But happy to be here and happy to present our solution to you here through this webinar today. We wanted to talk about the 5 ways to increase profits, and we'll go through that as we go. One thing I can say about our system, it's an award-winning technology. We've won the most innovative product award out of the World of Concrete 5 years, the last 3 years in a row, developing new systems and new features, new functions has really kind of kept us on the leading edge of technology in the construction niche, and we've also been a part of the top most 50 influential companies in the ConstructTech top 50 the last couple of years running. In terms of customers, we have a lot of customers across North America primarily, although we do have some across the Atlantic over in England. I've personally worked with a number of these companies and can attest to the success and happiness that they have with the system and just solving their tracking issues overall. This looks like a motto. It really is, but really it was how our system was built from the ground up. We have to have, it was a must-have for the developers of the company to have it simple and easy for the field people. In fact, 2 of our 4 owners are former contractors themselves, and they knew that if it was cumbersome, if it was tricky, if it was complicated, that the field guys just would not use it. So really it must be simple and easy and fast for the field guys, or it really just wouldn't get used. And over time, we've built a lot of powerful functionality and restrictions, controls, lots of different tools for folks in the office to, manage it, keep it even more simple for the field guys so that you can collect and get the data that you need. This really is a pie chart that shows the way that we do help your company. The biggest thing of all up on the top left is time. Labor is probably the largest expense for any construction company, and if you don't have a good handle on that, it can be a serious problem. You can be wasting a lot of money. Also, productivity, keeping guys more active, more effective out in the work area, less time twiddling their thumbs is another thing that we can also do. Assets, we call them assets. It's equipment that's being utilized out in the field and on the job. Forms, this is a newer part of our system where if you are still collecting on paper things like inspections or safety walkthroughs, really almost anything that you might need on paper, we can really streamline that and make it more efficient to collect it electronically on the same devices that you're collecting your time in. And then finally, of course, the integration piece is huge. A lot of systems out there don't integrate well or don't integrate at all, and AboutTime can really solve that, not only from handing data off to accounting systems, but the pull of data from accounting into our system is streamlined and automated, so you don't have to really think twice about it. The data, when you set it up in your accounting package, it becomes available to the guys in the field without really any effort at all. So we can really save a lot of time and effort and send a lot more profit to your bottom line on jobs and quit wasting so much money. The biggest money drain, if you will, for companies is really accountability. The American Payroll Association has done exhaustive studies on this, and they estimate up to 45 minutes a day are exaggerated or padded on employees' time when they're simply filling out a paper timesheet. And that can really add up. Even if you back that off to just 10 minutes a day of time savings per employee, if you had 100 employees, that's about $150,000 every year that you're overpaying to those employees. So that's huge. I mean, that is big. You can easily save with a system like AboutTime probably 20% of your labor cost. It's I can't go on enough about it. It's really huge. In the office, though, too, the clerical side of things, this is another area people are paying, multiple staff members to key in time off of paper timesheets, sometimes doing double, even triple entry. Again, you do the math and add up 5 to 6 minutes per time card per day per employee, and that time can add up quite a bit. We've seen companies that have adopted AboutTime that have eliminated or saved a full-time employee position just because of the streamlining that we can provide. So that's another big benefit. Now, bidding, and I used to be an estimator when I first started in construction years ago here in Denver. When you're bidding a project, of course, if you don't really have a good handle on how much you're going to put in for each segment of the job, of course, you're going to pad it a little bit just to make sure that you have enough money in the estimate to complete the job and not lose money. So with better data, having more accurate data, you can bid with a sharper pencil and really come in and undercut the competition, who are those people that are still doing sloppy practices and sloppy timekeeping. You can get a lot more won bids and increase your win percentage quite a bit. And then equipment time too. Equipment is almost as important. Some companies, it's even more important than labor, depending on the type of company you are. But we are built and designed to record and track equipment hours and equipment assignments as well, to help you streamline reporting all of that and getting it into your job costing and accounting systems. So these are pretty typical areas where companies are hurting. And this is where we can help. This is where AboutTime can improve the accuracy of the information you're getting. The guys in the field are going to be more productive. In fact, one story I could tell you, we have a client in the Maritime provinces up in Canada, and he did exhaustive studies prior to getting AboutTime on his employees' productivity. Spying on them, watching them, tracking them. He really did an intense study and found out he was getting 4.5 hours of productive time per day from his employees out in the field. And he knew that he could help that. He knew he was never going to get 8 total hours. There's always going to be some time where they're waiting for their next task. But with AboutTime and utilizing our real-time tracking, he was able to increase that productivity from 4.5 hours a day to 6.5 hours a day. And his profitability really went through the roof. He figured he saved over $400,000 a year after implementing AboutTime. And that was a relatively small company. He had about 150 employees, if I'm not mistaken. So that productivity measurement is real. You can really help get more productivity, more work out of your field workers. The efficiency part of it is we don't want them to spend a lot of time manipulating their timekeeping. If they've got their head down in their smartphone all day long, that's not going to help productivity. So we've made it simple, made it easy, and this way you can have a lot better visibility across the organization in much more real time. You'll be able to see what's going on and not have to wait for timesheets to be input into accounting next week. So these are huge. These can save you tons and tons of money. One of our customers, Martin-Zombeck, they're out in New York. They're an interior contractor. After they implemented AboutTime, they figured they had saved over $200,000 on one large job with AboutTime, just with all the efficiencies that we provide. Susan, their accounting person, said that the major reason that they went with AboutTime is they wanted to keep it simple. They didn't want their guys to have to do a whole lot of thinking. They could just focus on what they were doing And instead of worrying about manipulating the software, they could just clock in and go to work. So that's what we were able to provide for them, and they got a huge return on their investment. The system paid for itself in literally just one job. You know, their delayed reporting is another thing I could say. I mentioned that if you're waiting till next week to see the time input into accounting and then you're seeing what's going on, you know, it is delayed, and you can't make decisions on the spot. You have to wait till later. Sometimes then it's too late. So that visibility, that real time of seeing what's going on in the field can also save a tremendous, tremendous amount of money. Our prime method of time tracking is what we call real time, and this is where crews or individuals actually, when they start a new task or a new job, they'll clock in, and that way you'll get up to the minute accuracy on how much time they're spending on each task. If you're using smartphones, it only takes a second to start a new task. It really is not a big burden to ask them to clock into a new task when they start one. Authentication, that's another issue too with people buddy punching or ghost employees. I can't tell you how many stories I've heard of family members. You know, an uncle is covering for his nephew who was out late last night, and he's trying to get him 8 hours of pay because he knows he wants to keep everybody happy. With stuff like that, we have a number of options for authentication, biometric, facial confirmation, other ways, GPS as well, to make sure that the employees are where they say they are and who they are as the right people who are clocking in. The coding errors too. Now this is also pretty big too. In a lot of systems, and again, I've talked to a lot of contractors where their cost coding structure in accounting is fairly complex. And on a given job, you might have, you know, 20 or 40 or 50 active cost codes. But in accounting, if you've got literally sometimes thousands of cost codes to pick from, the field guys are often miscoding, or they're coding their time incorrectly. And an inordinate amount of time is spent fixing and recoding that properly. And again, with AboutTime, because of the way we integrate with accounting systems, we can deliver to the people in the field exactly what active cost codes are on the jobs that they're working on. We could even reduce their view to just show them only the jobs they're responsible for. So that way they're going to, it's going to completely, maybe not eliminate, but it's going to make it much, much better with them not miscoding their time. It really is a huge factor in our system. On the back end, integration, that is also huge. If you have to manually key in or re-key in labor and time information, again, that just slows everything down and makes you wait for that information until later. AboutTime can eliminate that time entry. We do have alerts and triggers in our system too if there's weather conditions, maybe cost overruns, employees clocking in when they say they're at the job site and they're 20 miles away. So we do have alerts built into the system that can be emailed, so you get, again, real-time information and not find out about it at the end of the day when it's too late to really do anything about it. The approval process too is big. A lot of other systems that I have heard about through customers and prospective customers don't really have a meaningful approval process too, so that you've got that visibility for project managers and supervisors to review and approve the time in a thoughtful and meaningful way before it's time to hand it off to accounting for payroll, instead of the hair on fire mode on a Monday or a Tuesday, not really giving it the time that it needs. And the simple factor, the simplistic factor, we really designed AboutTime with the notion of, if you're smart enough to and tech savvy enough to operate an ATM, if you can go up to an ATM and punch in your 4-digit PIN, select your account, pull out a $20 bill or maybe a $100 bill, and then off you go. If you've got that much tech savvy, you're tech savvy enough to use our system in the field. Sometimes I've talked to people where they have Hispanic workers and they're worried about the language barrier. Well, everything's color-coded. In and out is very specific and easy for them to grasp. The jobs are the jobs in English or in Spanish or French, whatever the case might be. The one area where you can be very helpful is to describe your activities, those cost codes or activity codes, possibly even in a bilingual fashion. But it's really, the idea is that I can pick my job, pick my cost code, clock in, and go to work literally in just a couple of seconds. So it does not take a lot of time to get on the clock. And this is true whether you're an individual working off of maybe a smartphone or a device like that, or maybe you're a crew using a shared device like a tablet as a shared time clock. That's the way Martin-Zombeck used their system. Or maybe just a crew leader reporting time in for their entire crew. Again, it's really fast and easy to use, so they don't have their head in their apps all day long. Better job costing, no more payroll processing time and errors. One thing too on the time, I should mention that we were built on and remain really true to the notion that the best option for time tracking is to do it in real time. Capture it as it occurs. You get more and more accurate information, and then there's no paperwork at the end of the day. You get that visibility back in the office. We can see where everybody is and what they're doing. But we do know that sometimes they might not allow mobile devices in a work area. If it's a hazardous work environment like a refinery, or maybe a sensitive area like a bank where they don't want you to be taking pictures on the inside. So we do know that there are occurrences or occasions when after the fact time tracking is really the only option. So we do offer what we call our digital timesheet, where at the end of the day or when they're out in their truck, they can go ahead for themselves or maybe for the entire crew, go ahead and fill out a timesheet. So we use that as a fallback option, but greatly prefer real-time whenever it is practical and appropriate. The accountability that I mentioned earlier too, we have GPS and geofencing in the system. If an employee is 20 miles away from the job site and drinking coffee at Lulu's Cafe in the morning and they clock in, but the job is still down the road, 10 minutes away, it'll show up. We have a map that shows exactly where they were when they clocked in, like in this little graphic. They're 5 miles away from the job site, but it'll also send that automated alert notification email to his supervisor and maybe someone back in the office, so that you'll know right away if they were present or not at the job. Now, a new feature, this is something we've recently added, is Spatial Authentication, where the device can actually, when you're clocking in, and this would drive you to a workflow where each person would clock in individually, that person, you would be able to collect their picture, basically, when they clock in. And in the system, for your people back in accounting, they're able to confirm from a photo on file to the photo for the clock in that employee is indeed the employee who is clocking in. So we do have a number of different methods and abilities to hold employees more accountable. Biometrics, I'm trying to remember, I don't think I have it on my slide here. We can even do a true biometric system, which really is the only completely bulletproof way to make sure that there is no buddy punching going on. We can have employees and insist they clock in the morning and clock out at the end of the day with a fingerprint, so that nobody can buddy punch or cheat for one of their relatives or friends. And I want to spend a moment on this particular slide. This is one of the most powerful parts of AboutTime, I believe, is that we can track time across multiple jobs and multiple job sites, multiple devices, in a work area. So think of this as a possible workflow. I could have an employee clock in the office with a fingerprint in the morning. When they arrive out at the job site on job A, their foreman might clock them in on the foreman's smartphone, and allocate their time to whatever activity they're working on. And they may even move to another job and another foreman. They might have a time punch on that foreman's phone. So these employees are bouncing around between jobs and clocking time in on different devices. We can even track the travel time in between those jobs if we design a workflow around that. But the idea is that regardless of where the data is coming in from, even if it's multiple devices, we marry all that time together into a single string of time, adding in biometrics if needed, and you get a complete and totally accurate day of where an employee was, what they were doing, and really at the end of the day, there's no paperwork to be done. It's already in the office. You could send it over to accounting daily if you wanted to. A lot of workflows are where you'll review and approve that time daily when it's fresh, and then on Monday or Tuesday of the next week when it's time to hand it off to payroll, no more hair on fire. You can just package that up, hand it off to accounting or payroll providers, and it's just as simple as easy on payroll day as it can possibly be, instead of sometimes your worst nightmare. So it can really help come payroll cutoff time. Equipment time, now this, as I mentioned before, is almost as important to employee hours with a lot of companies. We can track and record operated equipment hours, assign it to jobs and cost codes. We can even assign equipment to jobs and foremen so that you can keep tabs on where the equipment's located. A lot of folks use our forms module for recording vehicle inspections or other maintenance that you might perform on vehicles, so that you've got a record of what you did and how you completed that time on that particular piece of equipment. We could even bill or charge hours to equipment if you want to track the maintenance history on pieces of equipment as well. Another big thing too, sorry I lost my train of thought there for a second, is that you want to have the right people at the right job. We can actually assign employees to specific jobs in the system, and that way when your foreman's out there, instead of picking from a list of 500 employees, he's looking at a list of employees that are actually at that location. On the equipment side of things, I did mention too that you can record equipment hours along with employee time, and in this way we can affix a GPS tag on where that equipment was located when we were utilizing it out in the field. How are we doing on time here? I think we're just about to run up to our 30-minute here. I'm just about to wrap up here. Now, productivity, I did mention that customer in the maritime provinces in Canada, and really having that increased visibility is the key. So I know what guys are doing, I know what's going on. If there's problems and delays, I'm able to see it more immediately. We even track the production units, the number of items placed or installed as well, so you can get a units per hour view and track productivity in that way. So it really is huge, the amount of increased productivity that we can provide. This is a snapshot of that particular dashboard. So you'll be able to see, we show side by side the budgeted hours and the accrued or actual hours. And if you have a cost overrun, you know, excavation here, we had 75 hours in the budget. We've gone way over that. We're at 107 and counting. So again, you've got that dashboard. This is updated daily. You can see in more real time, instead of waiting till next week to learn, oh my gosh, we had a cost overrun and I'm just now finding out about it. So it's much more visible and up to the moment. We also collect field notes and photos, which are huge. If you do want to see a demonstration in more detail, we can show you how this works. The thing I like to say about photos is they're very, very powerful. The problem with photos with most companies is managing them. How do you label, identify them, store them, you know, recall them when you need to? That's the hard part, and often it doesn't get done. So with AboutTime, if you're already at a job site, your device is aware you've already logged in and set that job. So you take a photo, you're done. It'll give you the prompt to label it and give it a caption, and then off you go. And that's stored and saved with the job. Very easy to manage going forward. Shows up in a lot of different reports. We can really take the difficulties out of managing those photos. Now, forms, I mentioned earlier, this is one of our newer components of our system. Forms Express can eliminate those paper forms that you might rely on. I spoke to a company that they figured they handled 7 or 8 forms per job site per day that their foremen were filling out, and each one of those forms was handled multiple times, 2 or 3 times in the field, 2 or 3 times in the office. Finally, it got filed away where it had to be stored for 7 years, and just dealing with paper forms can be a huge expense. So we can streamline that and make that much, much more efficient and less costly for you. Instead of having a paper form that looks like this where all the data is locked up in the form until somebody inputs it manually, you can have data that you can work with. The appearance is very nice and clean. You can hand it off to customers if needed, and we can even export data that we collect in forms to use in other systems. So even though it's not time tracking, it can be part of our total data collection package. Now lastly, and we're winding up here, the accounting integration. This is perhaps, I think, our largest strength. We have developed from the beginning an all-in type of mentality on integrating with different accounting packages. We do integrate with a large number of them, all the ones in accounting, payroll companies as well, and we do it with a two-way integration. We have a live integration where we pull data over from accounting systems so that you don't have to key it in twice. And when we send it back to those systems, it'll be data validated. You won't have to worry about import errors. It really, really streamlines the whole process. So if I would imagine you may have one of the accounting systems that's shown here, but if not, don't worry. We can link to practically all of them. There's a rare few that we don't have an integration with. So for us, for AboutTime, for construction, we really believe this was designed specifically for you, designed for your needs, that this really is the right solution to help you save money in all the different ways that I've shown, and it can really deliver a lot to your bottom line. It's a system that will pay for itself year after year after year, and all that money will go to your bottom line. I do want to open the floor for any questions. We've got a couple of minutes here left before the top of the hour. And let's see here. It looks like I've got here's a question that came in. How do you turn on notifications for the Geofence? So we have in our alerts and notifications, what we'll do is anytime a threshold is passed, whether it's a GPS violation or a cost code violation where you've got a time overrun on a cost code, or even a weather alert, you'll set up an email distribution list that would automatically receive that email on that notification. So that's part of receiving the notification. In terms of the first part of the question about the Geofence, it's simply a radius around the job site, and you can set it at a quarter mile, half mile, a mile, depending on the job site, depending on how tight you want to make that radius. And if the employee, when they clock in, if the radius is set at 0.5 miles and they're 3/4 of a mile away, it'll flag that that record was out of the work area, and will pinpoint that on the map so you can see where they were. You can really drill down in Google Maps to the street level and see they were at a restaurant, or they were at the gas station, or you can tell exactly where they were when they clocked in. Let's see here. It looks like I might have. If you do have any other questions, in fact, I think we've kind of hit our time limit here. Any other questions, don't hesitate to contact AboutTime and talk to your sales rep. You can call us at our home office in Utah, or you can email us to the sales team at abouttimetech.com, and we would love to hear from you. I'm hoping this is kind of a teaser or a movie trailer, if you will. It makes you want to see the real movie, and we can arrange for a full demonstration and actually take you on a tour of the software and show you how it all works. So I'd like to thank you all for your attention and appreciate your attendance, and hopefully we'll be talking to you soon, and let us know if we can do anything at all to help. Thank you again.